93, 93, 93. This is the Mon Asha Renew from AshaRenew.com. Now, before we get started, of course, for those who may not know, open this up. That's what I'm listening to, the Nox Arcana. For those who may not know, again, I'm having a special, Sirius Rising special at the website. Everything is half off. Here's the information. Tap into AshaRenew.com for the Sirius Rising special. All service will be half off till August 1st. This is especially useful for anyone looking for insight as to how to navigate and access this new currency being downloaded to the planet in our consciousness, using brand new techniques. So even if you have ordered services before, I will be providing an original service and will love feedback. Thank you all for the continued support. Also, daily tarot predictions. Join my private Telegram group, link in the description of all my videos, starting August 1st. Contact me 702-530-1197 or asha@asharenew.com. Right? And of course, I have the picture of me here under the Statue of Liberty. All right, so again, for those who may not be aware, just putting you up on that. But here's what we'll be speaking about today. What's up, back from hiatus? Peace. So one of the listeners wanted me to speak on this particular topic because this was definitely something I missed and give my analysis on it. So that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to read through this article and I'll give my analysis after the fact. So this article was released July 6, 2022. So at the beginning of this month. It says conspiracy theorists think a large hadron collider transferred us into a parallel universe yesterday. So let me make this a little bigger. Now, let's see what they have to say. And here's how the CERN looks close up. So it says, on Tuesday, the world's largest particle accelerator was turned on once again. After 3 years of upgrades and maintenance, it immediately observed 3 exotic particles for the first time. The Large Hadron Collider is now up and running and breaking records for the highest energy particle collisions ever performed. It's all pretty exciting, with the teams involved searching for more information on the so-called God particle, the Higgs boson, and signs of dark matter. But of course, some conspiracy theorists out there have concerns that the collider will open a gateway to hell and or a parallel dimension from which there is no return. And here are, people on Twitter, making their comments. So nobody else is concerned that the CERN collider will be turning on July 5th and opening up a portal and letting some dark-sided shit come through. July 5th, CERN, it's time to get right with God and protect your energy, right? Anticipating the activating of CERN got me feeling some type of way. The fuck gives y'all the right to be opening portals and shit? Is it 2022 crazy enough? Sheesh, right? On July 5th, we will be feeling a sudden shift in the universe. It will feel like we have changed timelines. Do your research about CERN. If you think things have been weird, it's about to feel even weirder. Protect your energy at all costs from negative shit, right? Moving along. CERN has always been the subject of various conspiracy theories from the creation of black holes to human sacrifices on the ground. It appears that this year's conspiracy theorists have been watching a little too much Doctor Strange in the multiverse of madness, as the rumors this year have all centered around the opening of a portal to another dimension. Who has felt like a big shift is coming for a while now, one verified astrologer wrote on Twitter, in an example typical of the conspiracy theories. Now on July 5th, we are quite literally going to be switching timelines, when CERN is going to turn on their machine thingy. It's opening a portal to go through. Also, the unknown is coming in. Keep your positive vibes and energy up. I looked into this, another added. Look for 10 times more Mandela effects. Because back in 2012, they did a record voltage level that caused these Mandela effects. Whatever portal they're opening, they shouldn't. As funny as it is to imagine that you're going to avoid being dragged into a parallel dimension created by the machine thinking, by vibing, let's take the conspiracy theory seriously for a short moment. Being generous, you could guess that the alternative or alternate dimension theories are based on the idea that the LHC could in theory detect evidence for extra dimensions. How could we test for extra dimensions? One option would be to find evidence of particles that can exist only if extra dimensions are real. CERN explains on their website. Theories that suggest extra dimensions predict that in the same way as atoms have a low energy ground state in excited high energy states, there would be heavier versions of standard particles in other dimensions. These heavier versions of particles, called Kaluza or Kaluza, Kaluza Klein states, would have exactly the same properties as standard particles and so be visible to our detectors, but with a greater mass. If CMS or Atlas were to find Z or W light particle, the Z and W bosons being carriers of the electroweak force with a mass 100 times larger, for instance. This might suggest the presence of extra dimensions. Such heavy particles can only be revealed at the high energies reached by the LHC. Another possibility is that the LHC could produce extremely temporary and incredibly miniature black holes. The appearance of these microscopic black holes could tell us about the existence of extra dimensions. However, they are not anything that will engulf the planet and will collapse in on themselves in about 10 negative 27 seconds. And I know I said, there's a mathematical way of saying that. 10 to the negative 27th power seconds. So it's basically like 27 zeros. Speculations about the microscopic black holes at the LHC refer to particles produced in the collisions of pairs of protons, each of which has an energy comparable to that of a mosquito in flight, CERN adds. Astronomical black holes are much heavier than anything that can be produced at the LHC. So how did conspiracy theorists react when the LHC was turned on and we did not switch dimensions, you ask? They changed the goalpost faster than a proton being hurled around a particle accelerator. A lot of people are a lot of people are discounting how serious the CERN agenda truly is. It's not like beings emerge from a portal and instantly kill everyone. That's not how satanic rituals work. The ramifications of what happened yesterday will unfold in the coming months. They had previously tweeted, in 8 hours the gates of hell will be opened. The trans-dimensional reptilian beings are coming for you and your family. This is not a drill. All right. So that's essentially the article. Right? What's up, DJ Dean? There was that swirling fire in the ocean. Yes, I remember that. Yes, I remember that. Now, is there some validity to all this, or are people just, so far gone that, they basically they already are in an alternative universe? So the first thing I want to point out is this is the reason why they want to keep science and spirituality second. Because what they call so-called conspiracy theorists, they don't call themselves conspiracy theorists. I guarantee that they would just consider themselves spiritual, or new agey. So all the people that's speaking about this, you can say they adhere to the new age philosophy. Right? They're not going around necessarily considering themselves conspiracy theorists. So what happens is, this is why we remain separated. So it's going to always be a us versus them. It's always going to be science versus the new age. Because they want to keep us at odds. The same way they want to keep the black and white at odds. The same way they want to keep the rich and poor at odds. So on and so forth. So this is necessarily nothing new in the playbook of colonization. Right? So it's always going to be, science versus pseudoscience. That's basically what it comes down to. The science versus pseudoscience. So are these people taking it a step too far, talking about satanic rituals and opening up gateways to hell, creating new black holes? Or is there some validity to any of this, especially when they speak about the Mandela effect, so on and so forth? Now, if you want my opinion about all this, my analysis, because everybody, love talking about that satanic shit. From what I see, basically from what I read, and I just read this article not too long ago, so I haven't been sitting on this information for too long. I literally just read through this not too long ago, so this isn't, something I've been sitting on for a while. What ends up happening is they are both right. They're both right. It's not one or the other. Again, putting two groups of people against each other, we start to think like absolutists. One group has to be right, the other group has to be wrong. So the first thing I'm doing is, let's remove ourselves from thinking like absolutists, because the truth is within, somewhere in the middle of what both of these groups are saying. That's why they have to speak in code. They speak in code because they're giving you both perspectives. And if you can find the common denominator between the two, you will be closer to the truth than being on the left side of this or the right side of this. Because most scientists are not spiritual. They don't acknowledge anything that we consider pseudoscience. So they're not acknowledging astrology. They acknowledge astronomy, but they're not acknowledging astrology. They're not going to acknowledge no satanic rituals, no gateways to hell. They're not going to acknowledge that. But that doesn't mean that none of these things are occurring just because they don't acknowledge it. Just like the people on the other side, they're not going to acknowledge that, okay, we're just looking for particles. We're just trying to see how this universe works. We're just looking for the God particle, as they say. And that's why I say both of these things can be true at the same time. So let's take this a step further. So I can actually move this out the way now. Or I can let me just go back to the image of the CERN so we can look at that. Zoom out a little bit. So I'll just keep it here. So what ends up happening is, just because we can't see things with our physical eye doesn't mean that they are not occurring. As we know, if we're talking about demons, if we're talking about jinn, if we're talking about spirits, you can't detect these things with your physical eye. But that does not mean that these things are not occurring. You just will not be able to see it with your eyes. So it is very possible that everything that these scientists are doing, that they are indeed doing all these things, but you're not going to be able to detect it with the physical eye. So in their mind, I'm not going to say that they're just a bunch of evil scientists and they are fully aware of what they're doing. Now, of course, they're Masons. Of course, they are a part of a secret society. Of course, they fool us. So they have intentions of leading the people astray. That's just what the 10% does. They blood suck the poor. So we know that. So I'm not saying that they're just absolutely telling the truth. They are aware of what they're doing on an agenda level. However, if you ask any of these people, are they Satan worshipers, they're probably not going to say they are. If you ask them, do you believe in spirits and ghosts, they probably will say no. So they're not going to outwardly admit to any of these things because they probably don't believe in it, because there are levels to it. Remember, the first degree Mason doesn't know the same thing that the 33rd degree Mason knows. So in my opinion, what's going on is you have lower level Masons, people a part of secret societies, doing things which they themselves may feel is not occurring. To me, that's what really happens. We have low level Masons doing things that they are not aware of because they are not initiated into the higher chambers, the secret chambers. So they very well may have intentions of, discovering the God particle, as I said. And they're not thinking about anything spiritual or satanic. However, when you go into the higher degrees, when you are able to activate the third eye, you can see exactly what's going on. Now we have a different story. But does everybody know those secrets? Does every Mason, does everybody a part of the secret society knows all these things? Absolutely not. So you may only have people at the highest levels of these societies knowing exactly what's going on. So that's why when they say we're not doing this and we're not doing that, they can be absolutely telling the truth. Because from their perspective, they don't know anything about what's going on. It's not until they initiate into the higher realms that they realize, okay, this is what's actually going on. But this is how the secret societies work. They keep the ones on the lower levels ignorant until they are ready to handle greater truths. So that's why when they say, no, we're not doing that, that is not actually a lie. Because again, they just don't know any better. So that keeps them, so like even if you put them like under a lie detector test, they could actually pass it because they just literally don't know. So that's what I mean by they can both be right at the same time. Like all of the scientists have no idea what's going on a spiritual level. And the people that do know what's going on the spiritual level are not necessarily scientists initiated into secret societies. So that's what I mean. We have two different groups of people, like who's going against each other, but they are both right. Now, I'm not going to say that the conspiracy theories are 100% right, because of course it got to be something satanic. Of course it got to be something demonic. I guarantee they wouldn't say, okay, we're creating dark holes and portals to initiate angels through it. Of course it got to be Satan. Of course it got to be some reptilian agenda. And that's what I mean. I don't necessarily agree with all that they have to say either, because they automatically assume it's demonic. They will never say it's angelic. They will never say this is of God. They're going to always say it's of the devil, because a lot of these conspiracy theories still have a Christian way of thinking. So even if they don't acknowledge the Christ, they still think like Christians, because everything all automatically goes back to Satan and demons, because what else are they going to point to? That's all they know. They're not going to be able to name the name of the deities. They don't study that deep. Again, they're not initiated, so how would they know? So most conspiracy theories are not initiated into a secret society to be able to be taught what's really going on either. So this is how they play us. We end up getting played by each other because both parties are telling half truths. That's because that's just the level that they are on. So this is what I mean by they are both truthful, but the truth is somewhere in the middle. So that middle part is, if you are opening a black hole and demons are coming through, angels have to come through as well, because that's just balance. Meaning that's the universal law. That's the law of polarity. The law of polarity means that for every negative, there is a positive. So if we're going to be talking about demons, we cannot exclude angels, because that's just the law of the universe. But again, they're not going to tell you that because they don't think that way. So if anything is coming through sinister, then an equal angelic form is also coming through to keep it balanced. That's because that's just the way the universe works. So while the scientists are trying to prove or get more information about the God particle with dark matter and dark energy and dark fluid, in the spiritual communities, again, they just call it demons, because demons are older than all the deities we know, like the Greek gods, the Egyptian gods, the African deities, the Chinese, all these deities from mythology. We have older deities, but they're just called demons, and satanic worshipers and all these things. These just represent the oldest deities, aka like the Titans. If you know about mythology, you know about the Olympians, the Olympic gods, and then you know about the Titans. And the Titans were suppressed by the Olympic gods. They used the Titans to build the new world. The same thing with Murdoch and Tiamat. Murdoch used the body of Tiamat to build the new world. So this is exactly what's going on. So again, if you're going to have demons coming through, you also are going to have angels coming through. You just cannot have it one way or another. But again, you have to get out of an absolutist mind to comprehend that. Now, speaking about the Mandela effect, things appearing to be different. The Mandela effect, things change. Like the Bible said one thing, and now it's saying something else. Something said one thing, now it's saying something else. So we should be familiar with the Mandela effect, where something used to say this, and now it says something else. And basically, we have shifted into an alternative reality. I do agree that parallel universes exist, and I feel like we tap into these universes when we dream. That's what makes dreams real. To me, that's what happens when we dream. When we dream, we tap into parallel universes. We tap into parallel realities. We tap into real life phenomenon. It's just not occurring on the level that we are familiar with. So there are many worlds. There are many Earths with alternative timelines. So that means you exist in many different universes, taking many different paths. This is the whole science of the Kabbalah. That's why the Kabbalah has 22 paths. The Kabbalah has 22 paths because they all represent a certain current of energy. So there can never just be one current of energies. There are many different realities happening simultaneously. So this is true. It just comes to a level of, if we call this demonic and satanic, it's because we're dealing with older deities that we don't even have a name for, because they have all been destroyed and replaced with religious deities, which was the goal. The goal was to replace science with religion. So all of our ancestors were scientists, but they didn't have instruments. They didn't have microscopes, because they knew how to activate the third eye. They knew how to use the third eye like a microscope, also like a telescope. That's why we were able to chart the stars without a telescope. And we were able to see the most minute levels of reality without a microscope. Because all that is possible with your spiritual eyes, as we call the first eye. So all these things are possible because we've already did it. Before we had any of these instruments, we already knew about the secrets of the universe. And that's why the ancestors taught the secrets of the universe, because we already had a knowledge of it. How could we not know what the fuck we created? The universe was created by the ancestors. How do we not know what's there? We put it there. So all this search of the God particle, they're basically searching for the source of the universe, but the source of the universe cannot be detected with the physical eye. It's just like you can't find a third eye on a person's body. You can find a pineal gland, but you're not going to find a third eye, because the third eye is in your astral body, and your astral body isn't physical. Your astral body is made from a substance that's partly physical, but it's also partly etheric. So it's not fully spiritual and it's not fully physical. It's somewhere in between. And that's my whole point. It's somewhere in between. So if we are talking about astral phenomenon, that's what they're talking about, opening up gateways and opening up portals. We're talking about astral phenomenon, and astral phenomenon is partly physical and partly etheric. So that's why we must look at the in-between spaces. And the more we look at the in-between spaces, the more to the truth, or the more closer to the truth we will arrive at. So that's why they're building all these expensive telescopes, microscopes, and CERN machines, because they're trying to detect, as they say, the God particle. But in order to detect the God particle, which we have always known about, but we just didn't need all of this machinery, because it is a part of us. If we are the creators of the universe, then the God particle must rest within us. Remember, the universe is holographic. It is a holographic universe. So if the universe is holographic, that means it is an illusion. So the thing that is real, or the only thing that is real, is consciousness. And consciousness cannot be measured by a machine. You can measure brain waves by a machine, but you cannot measure consciousness with a machine. So this search for the God particle is just like trying to find consciousness. And you cannot find consciousness with a machine, but you can detect consciousness with your first eye. That's how we are able to communicate with deities. We communicate with the deities with the first eye. We can detect consciousness. Because consciousness, you can say, is partly physical, but partly etheric. It is in that in-between space. And that's what they're talking about, opening up black holes and portals. They're talking about opening up that in-between space. So what they're going to end up doing is, whatever sinister agenda they may have, they're also producing the opposite. And that's the point I'm making. So even if they have this so-called satanic agenda, you cannot ignore the angelic agenda. Meaning, as much as they're trying to destroy you, they're also giving you more insight, as we call downloads, right? Or light codes or dark codes. So whatever agenda they may have, because of the law of polarity, they're also initiating a new age or a new wave for you to receive your light codes and your dark codes, so that you know exactly what to do so that you don't get caught up in all of this madness. I guess you're going to get caught up in it because this is dealing with us, but you don't get lost. You don't get led astray. You don't become a conspiracy theorist, and you're not necessarily trying to become a Mason, trying to manipulate the people's consciousness by leading them in the wrong direction. You take that in between space, but that's the whole point of gray matter. See, now they're talking about dark matter, but you see they did not mention gray matter, because it is gray matter that's at the center of the brain. That's basically where the pineal gland is. If you look where the pineal gland is surrounded by what we call gray matter. And gray matter is not stimulated by anything physical. So in other words, in your day-to-day reality, the gray matter is not stimulated. The only thing that stimulates the gray matter is spiritual phenomenon, aka opening up the first eye. That's what stimulates the gray matter. So that's why I'm speaking about the in-between space. The in-between space just represents gray matter and activating your own gray matter. So your gray matter is not going to be activated by a microscope or a telescope or a CERN machine. The gray matter is activated by you coming to the realization of who and what you are, meaning you are the God particle. What they are searching for is you. It's already within you. We call it gray matter because gray matter is what connects the black matter and the white matter together. What binds all of these things together is the gray matter, and the gray matter is stimulated by spiritual phenomenon. By you coming to the realization of how spiritual your consciousness is, meaning you can take your consciousness and go into the dream plane. You can take your consciousness and astral project. It's your consciousness that allowed you to go between these spaces, between the physical reality and the spiritual reality. It is the consciousness that takes you into these worlds, into these parallel universes. And that's why they call it satanic. So whatever you feel is satanic, again, from a Christian perspective, all they're really speaking about is gray matter, because why would a Christian want you to activate your gray matter? You cannot be controlled when your gray matter is activated. So why would a Christian want you to activate your gray matter? Why would a Mason want you to activate your gray matter? That makes you free in your thinking. So if you are free in your thinking, you're able to see both sides and realize that they're both right, but you are not taking sides. You can go directly into that middle path or that middle pillar. That middle pillar on the Kabbalah is called the Zohar pillar. And we know there's a whole book called the Zohar, which is written in Hebrew. That's why I mentioned in the Kabbalah, the Zohar is Hebrew. That's why I'm always utilizing the Hebrew alphabet. That's why I'm always utilizing the tarot. That's why I'm always using astrology and numerology, because it connects you to the Zohar, that middle pillar. And that middle pillar is where you find the 13th path of the high priestess. That's the third eye. That's the moon. That's that silver within all of us. That's how you activate the gray matter. And that's why the high priestess is the guardian of the clip-off. In order to access the clip-off, you must activate Thoth. Thoth is just another way of saying death. You must master death. That's what it's really, that's why they call it satanic, because anything so-called satanic is you mastering death. It's not you mastering life or 3D. It's you mastering death or 4D, because when you die, you become fourth dimensional. When you are no longer third dimensional, you become fourth dimensional. You still exist, just in the plane of death, as we call the clip-off. And the guardian of the clip-off is the high priestess. That's why she's dualistic. I just showed the high priestess on the last video. Wow. That's why she can play an instrument, but she can also kill with that bow and arrow. That bow and arrow can also be an instrument. So she can create life, but she can also initiate death. And that's why that's connected to the third eye, aka the first eye, aka Thoth. This is how you access 4D without having to disconnect yourself from 3D. That's why it's called astral projection, because you are projecting. Because when you actually die, you're not projecting. It's a permanent state. So hopefully that gave you some more insight as to don't get caught up on either side. Understand that the in-between path, that Zohar pillar, that 13th path, and the 13th card is death. The 13th tarot, or the 13th trump, is the energy of death, which takes you to the energy of the Scorpio constellation, which is a Hebrew letter Nun, which takes you into the depths of your soul. And that's where you will find the God particle. So with that, I bear peace. 93, 93, 93.